Hey guys, it is Hyper. That intro fitted perfectly with today's topic, which is all about becoming a better tank driver. Now before I start with all the tips, I first wanted to discuss all the loadouts that are available and what I think is the best loadout you should equip in a tank. So let's get on with the primaries. In the primary section we've got the AP shell, which is the standard shell which does normal damage and travels at a low bullet velocity. We've got the high explosive shell, which does more damage, but also has a lower bullet velocity, which travels a lot faster and is harder to control. And then we've got the sabot shell, which shoots a explosive payload with increased velocity, that shell is extremely fast. Now my preferred is the AP shell simply because it does normal damage and it is the easiest shell to control. Now moving on to the secondaries. We've got the coaxial LMG, which is only used against infantry and cannot be used against anything else. Then we've got the guided shell, which can lock onto other ground vehicles and can also be fired at laser designated targets. Next we have the coaxial HMG, which can be used against infantry and light armored vehicles, but fires at a lower fire rate and is a bit harder to control. Next we've got the canister shell, which shoots basically just pellets on infantry, which can just only be used on infantry. Next we have the staff shell, which is at the moment kinda glitched because you can fire it directly after you fired your primary. So in this loadout I won't take that to account because I assume that DICE is gonna fix this soon and it won't be as overpowered as it is at the moment. Now for the secondaries I prefer the LMG simply because I like being able to take out infantry that are trying to C4 me or trying to shoot rockets at them, and I just have another weapon to take infantry players out instead of having only the main shell as a tool for that. Now for the countermeasures I would suggest using the IR smoke or the active protection. Both actually do a bit of the same, but I still prefer the IR smoke, and that is because the active protection, I feel that the active protection often doesn't work and I still get hit even when I switched it on. That's why I prefer the IR smoke. Now moving on to the optics, I like using the zoom optic because it gives me an advantage if a tank or something else, a vehicle, is further away. I like using the optic zoom, but it basically comes down to personal preference. Now that we've got the loadout all covered, let's move on to some tips. The first tip that is very basic, and that is don't see your tank as a ultimate power weapon. See it as a fat infantry soldier, because often I see people trying to rush with a tank, which is not a good idea because a tank can be easily taken out and you want to play as carefully as you would play if you would play as a infantry. Now with that said, you must also really watch out on your positioning. You must use your cover just like you would if you would play as a soldier. Never show your back because that is a very weak spot and you would easily be taken out if you would show your back to, for instance, a tank or someone that is trying to shoot a RPG at you. Now another basic tip is, of course, be a engineer as you're driving your tank, because the engineer class is simply the best class to use when you're driving this vehicle. You will be able to repair it and also fire off rockets if your tank is disabled. Now another thing when playing in a tank is knowing when to retreat. It is no shame to retreat because if your vehicle has been damaged and you see in that situation that you're not gonna win that battle with the enemy tank, know to retreat and get back to cover, repair your vehicle and then get back into the fight. I often see people not doing this and getting killed because of that. Now my final tip when driving into a tank is switching to third and then to first person. Now in Battlefield 3 you didn't really need to do that because as a driver you just could equip the proximity scan, which basically protected you against all enemy soldier threats such as C4. Now in Battlefield 4 you can't as a driver equip the proximity scan, but my tip to counter that is trying to switch to third person and then to first person to check your surroundings and see if you're not getting C4'd, and you'll see me do that quite a lot, and if I don't do that then I will get killed. Now that were all the tips that I have for you today. If you enjoyed the video, then please hit like. If you're new around here, feel free to subscribe. This was Hyper, and as always, thanks for watching.